Hello, everyone. Welcome to the next stage. We are back in the Zoom world, and Ben just had a cat walk across the screen, so we know we have truly begun. It's going to be a good night, everyone. My name is Rebecca Wallace. I'm the marketing director at City Lights Theater Company, and I also host our streaming series, which we call The Next Stage. And it is mostly complementing the shows we have on our main stage to give audience members a chance to get up a little bit more close and personal with our artists, ask questions, share thoughts, watch and listen, all that good stuff. You are welcome to have your cameras on or off. We are recording the program tonight that will be shown on City Lights YouTube, so it's okay if you're feeling camera shy. No worries about that. And you are welcome to type questions into the chat if you have any at any time. I'm going to start by asking questions of our artists and show some photos, but if something pops up that just can't wait for the audience Q&A afterwards, feel free to type it in. Hi, there are lots of you here. This is great. Let's just popcorn around and have you all introduce yourselves and then jump on to the next person. Let's start with our playwright, Mr. Kit Wilder.
Hi, can you hear me? I'm good.
Hear you just fine.
Excellent.
Yeah, you can all just oh, sorry.
Yeah, I just want to make sure I could be heard and I have everything set right. I'm Kit, and I wrote the play, and I'm also a familiar face around City Lights as a director and a sometime actor as well.
That's great. And Kit, can you pass it on to the next person to just introduce
yourself?
Let's
go segue to the director, Jeffrey Bracco.
Hi, everyone. I am the director, Jeff Bracco, and I directed Toxic and have directed many shows at City Lights over the years and love to work there. Oh, and I get to throw it to, Ben. Go ahead, Ben.
Ben Hammond, stage manager production, and I'll just throw it, since he's next on my thing, I'll throw it to Aaron.
Hello, my name is Aaron Joseph Coleman, and I play the role of Kevin in Toxic. I'll pass it on to Sarah.
Oh boy, yay. Hi, I'm Sarah. I play Rachel in the production. Let's give it over to Christina.
Hi, I'm Christina Bolanini. I play Annika in the production, and I'm going to toss it to Sam.
Hi, all. I'm Sam Kruger, and I play the character of Greg. Let's hear from Stephanie.
Everyone, my name is Stephanie Barajas, and I play Shannon in Toxic. I will pass it on to Lexi.
Hello, everyone. I'm Alexandra, or Lexi, and I play the character Jessie.
And we also have Lisa Millette, our executive artistic director, who, if you've been to this series before, you've seen Lisa. She's a familiar face there and around the theater. Happy to have you all here tonight. Thank you. Kit already has something to say. Go, Kit, go.
I have a question. I just want to be sure in how we talk about the play that everybody who's here, who's not in the play or who has worked on the play, has seen the play.
Yes, that's a good
because
one.
Because I wouldn't want to offer any spoilers for those who haven't seen it.
Yeah, I'm not sure if anybody, let's see. I'm not familiar with everyone's names. I know some of you have seen it. Dan, have you seen the show already? Okay, great. So no spoilers for you. I know Lauren has.
Lauren has. Hi, Lauren.
Sasha has seen the show. Okay,
great. Yeah, we're good.
Great. I think we're pretty much good. Good. That's great. No, that's a really good point, especially with the character of Kevin, who you know you really got to see this.
Yeah.
Aaron, you're a complete spoiler. Just turn off your camera. Just kidding. Thanks for being here tonight. Why don't we start off with Kit? We have a highlights dramaturgy guide, and of course a program where we talk a lot about how the play got started. So some of you may be familiar, but I'd love to hear a little bit more from Kit. You first wrote Toxic as a showcase for acting students at Shenandoah University. And when did you decide that it was going to be more than a showcase, but a fully staged production?
Well, somewhere in one of the readings that we did with the students, after it had been rewritten into the form that Toxic became, because it wasn't the first that I wrote for them, it became Toxic, so to speak. In one of those meetings, everybody was reading the play aloud and sort of sat back, and there was this hush that fell over the room, and the instructor who was the instructor of record for the showcase class, for the senior class of this 2019, I think it was, looked at me and said, okay, this is really something. And I just sort of popped it back into my brain, not thinking it was going to be anything else or have a life beyond the showcase. But that little sort of lentil back there in that part of my brain sort of stayed alive, and ultimately I came back to it. Usually I don't like to jump right in and see where something can go. You know, if something has been done, or if something has a life of a certain kind of life of its own, that's what it is. And if I was going to go back to Toxic and turn it into what you have seen, that takes a while. And it was probably good 2 years before I jumped back in to see what could be made of it, particularly for City Lights, which I always consider my home company. You know, they're the company that has given me, you know, opportunities to write other things and work with some of my very favorite collaborators, including Mr. Bracco and Lisa. And so it was like, oh, maybe I need to work on this and start pushing it to City Lights a little bit, since City Lights is, as we all know, a theater that is certainly not shy about teeing up work that is about important issues, which this one certainly is. And that was sort of the thought process for me. You know, ultimately it began as a tool for the actors. It's like, let's show off these actors. Which I think, if you know that, then the structure of the play makes some more sense. That it gives every actor a chance to shine in their moment, and that was intentional, because I didn't want to play, and they didn't want to play, that was just get up and do a monologue, get up and do a monologue, get up and do a monologue. They didn't want that sort of standard, sort of classical showcase format. They wanted a play that then they could shine within. And that's what I tried to give them. And as I've said to some people, the first iteration of Toxic was called Sit-In, about protests, and covered a lot of particularly 20th century history, American history. And it was unspeakably bad. It was absolutely, I think actually maybe Mr. Bracco has read it, and it was, or maybe he hasn't, which is good. He's still recovering. It was truly bad. It wasn't a play at all. It wasn't anything. It was just a complete mishmash of me just throwing like the spaghetti on the wall, what sticks. And that's what it was. And they read it, and the students said to me, yeah, and the teacher who was in charge, Kirsten, came to me and they said, it's not really what we want. And I had to say, well, after a moment of defensiveness and trying to sell it, realized, no, you're absolutely right, because this stinks. And let's go back to the drawing board. And that's when we really started to have conversations about what resonated for the students, which is why ultimately the play is about, and for particularly young people grappling with these issues, because the play talks specifically about the things that were important to them in our conversations.
Weren't they the ones who suggested the topic of gun violence in schools?
Yes. Yeah, because gun violence was just a part of what Sit-In was. I mean, it sort of dealt with it. Sit-In sort of skipped on. It would be like a one of those literature courses where you cover 1,000 years of literature in a week. It was one of those, and it was yeah. So they said, hey, let's not do a survey. Let's really focus on something. I said, okay, what works for you? Well, and the two parallel things was gun violence. They wanted to deal with gun violence because, like me, they're pissed off. And two, what's going on in this country? You know, and I don't want to bring up necessarily political things tonight, but we were how many years into Trump's term, and people were, whatever side you're on, things were not exactly going well. And they wanted to talk about that too, and what that meant. And I translated that as not being able to talk to each other.
Yeah.
Which I think connected with gun violence as well. Anyway, enough of that. That's how Toxic came to be. Ideally, the germ of it.
Sit-In. Well, I've not even heard of that title.
Well, yeah, you don't want to remember it either. Actually, it's a great title. It's a good title. Good title. Yeah.
And for the record, I did read it, but I blocked it out of my memory.
And that is what I expected of you. Thank you, sir. Romeo and Ethel, the Pirate's Daughter. Ooh, good title.
Well,
Anyway,
it's great to have Kit teaming up with Jeff Bracco again. For those of you who haven't been around City Lights as long as I have, they've done
or
some
as long
great,
as we have.
as long as you have, I was going to say. They co-wrote Truce, A Christmas Wish from the Great War, which was a big hit for us in 2014. Beautiful play. They've been on stage together that same year. They were in Yasmina Reza's Art. It was such fun to see them together. Jeff directed Kit in The Merchant of Venice. No, other way around.
Nope, other way
Kit
around.
directed Jeff in The Merchant of Venice. And great production.
And one more.
And there's one more.
I
Jeff,
directed. Go ahead. I directed Kit in what was M Butterfly. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm glad it was so memorable.
No.
And the two of you have known each other a long time, and you're clearly friends, and you collaborate well. I feel like I'm quoting from Merrily Roll Along. How do you two work together? What do you both bring to the table that helps you collaborate so well?
Well,
you want to go first?
I think I will since
since I have.
Yeah, there you go. I was thinking about that, and that, our collaboration began many, many, many years ago when we were both students at Santa Clara University, where I teach now. And right off the bat, we just kind of seemed like we spoke the same language when it came to theater. Sometimes we spoke the same language about other things, but definitely theater. And there was just kind of an understanding, even kind of an unspoken understanding, that we both I don't know, that we could work together, and we did. And right away we were involved in projects. And even though we've both gone off to different places and gone off and done other things, we've always been able to come back to that. Well, we've come back to our friendship, first of all, but also come back to our being able to collaborate theatrically for many, many years. And we've also done, those are the projects at City Lights. We've done projects other places as well. And again, I just think it's almost this unspoken understanding of each other and how we like to work. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of where I'd start with it. Kit, what do you think?
Well, at the risk of embarrassing both of us, I think that the track of our relationship has been just a classic bromance in some ways. I mean, we both have had our primary relationships in our life, and we always keep kind of coming back to each other for both celebration and commiseration, which is great. One of the things that I love about working with Jeff, particularly, not just hanging out or enjoying a bottle of wine, is that Jeff and I can be really honest with each other about the work.
Yeah.
And you can't get it done without doing that. I trust Jeff's instincts and his abilities implicitly, and I assume he does as well mine. He can tell me, I mean, with Truce, oh my goodness, how many times did he tell me, "Oh, Kit, come on, really?" and because I have a tendency when I'm writing, as Jeff will attest to, of going over what he calls the playwriting cliff. And so he's in a way my catcher in the rye. He keeps me from doing that as a writer sometimes, but also I find him inspiring, as a director and as a friend and as a co-actor. I mean, we had so much fun in Art. Oh my God, which was the second time we were on stage together after 30 years, because the first thing we did together was at Santa Clara University back when we were, years young. Kids basically, and Jeffrey was Romeo and I was Mercutio together in that play, and we kind of hit it off instantly, with our love of the bard and our love of theater that really goes there, and all that. So Jeff is going to be by my side whether he likes it or not till the bitter end. So that's just the way it is.
I do like it and will like it. I'd say you kind of alluded to it, Kit. I think we're able to challenge each other in really positive ways, not negative ways, and get the best out of each other, which is really what a great collaborator does, I think.
Sure.
I feel like his ideas always make my ideas better, and I hope my ideas make his ideas better, and together we get there.
And it's not always a praise fest either. Sometimes it's like, this needs to be fixed, or this isn't good. I mean, I remember the first night that we read Toxic, you kind of laid into me. You were like, dude, you were like squirming from the first line, relax. It's like, yes, you're absolutely right. I need to just relax, because I was breaking my own rule of thinking of product instead of process, and Jeff reminded me of that. by looking at me and calling me on being a little impatient. And that was great. I loved it. Then I knew we were in
That's
great
so
hands.
valuable in a
Oh,
collaboration.
it's
You
great.
just say like, look,
Yeah.
no, this isn't working. Let's try this.
I mean, usually it's Jeff who does that with me, but I'll tell you honestly, usually it's me who deserves it. So there you go.
Okay,
Nice.
that's
Thank you both.
And that's enough of that.
I think that's great. I have some questions for the actors, but before then, I have some of the production photos that I think folks haven't seen yet. So I
haven't
always like
seen
to.
any.
Sarah's applauding. Sarah knows I did this during Thanksgiving play. I'm like, here's some photos you haven't seen yet. I am going to spotlight myself and show you some photos that you may not have seen. Let's see. Well, let's start with this nice one.
Oh, look, there it is.
Look at that team. And add just a little call out to scenic designer Ron Gasparnetti and that amazing floor. Because
Yeah.
I think we've all seen floors like that in a school.
In our schools, absolutely.
Yep. This is a beautiful shot
Oh, nice.
of Victor and Stephanie and Joanne. It's a really lovely one.
It makes it really clear that the play is a comedy. So that's nice.
Yes. Oh, and I should credit our photographer, our company photographer, Christian Pizzerani, always does wonderful work for us. This is a nice one of Arturo. I think, Arturo, are you here? I thought I saw you jump in.
I think he's here.
Yep. He's muted, but he's here. Nice
It's
to have
me.
Arturo back. Hi.
Hey,
Nice
Arturo,
to
how
have
you doing?
back after Kinky Boots and, oh my goodness, The River Bride and Fun Home. Welcome back. He's still muted, but he's smiling. Yeah, it's great.
Thank you for welcoming me back to all of you. And it's nice to see Kit's face again.
Oh, thank you. You lie so well.
And everybody knows I've talked incessantly about Lexi's monologue and how it just, it's beautiful. Yeah, this is a really nice shot. We've also got Nick here and Jonathan. I'm pointing as though you can see my finger. You cannot, but there you are. Another gorgeous photo. A lot of great photos of Aaron. This red light is really stunning. When the light,
that's really cool.
At that moment, it's really, really kind of breathtaking. Stephanie breaking our hearts. Beautiful work, Stephanie. And then here's a shot from close to the end.
Okay, that totally got me when I saw the show. The enough.
Yeah.
The enough on the screen was terrific.
And that the video that happens during the show is also Ron Gasparnetti's work.
And it was fabulous.
Yeah.
It's fabulous.
That's right. That's right. Ron created those as well. Yeah. Beautiful work. Actors. Oh, let me put my face back on the there we go. Actors. Obviously very powerful subject matter. Hi, Nick. Welcome, Nick. Very powerful subject matter. Very powerful play. I'm just going to throw it out there, and whoever wants to jump in, why was it important to you to tell this story? What connected you to this play? Anybody want to start off? I'm going to put you all on the spot. Sarah. Hi, Sarah.
I can start. I mean, I think
So in character.
Excuse me.
Yes, Rachel. Yes.
You don't have to raise your hand. We're all, you just jump in.
Talking about. No. Yeah, I think a lot of just growing up in this country, and it's always something that you think about. I remember being in high school after the Parkland shooting, and we actually had a lockdown of our own at my school, and nobody felt okay. Everybody, all of my classmates were freaked out, even though it wasn't anything serious that happened. Everyone could feel just how heavy just being in a lockdown was, and it really makes you think, like, why does this keep happening? And then now, it's been years later since I've been in high school, and it's getting worse and worse, and it's something that you can't go a day without thinking about. So to be able to express that hurt and that anger through this show, it really resonates in that way. I think all the characters' points of views are really interesting also, and yeah, it's just been a really interesting thing to do a play about something like this, when usually you're like, oh, I it's sad, but maybe I can just like go to sleep and dream it off. But then when you're actually putting yourself in the situation, you know, putting yourself in the shoes of the survivors, it's not something you can just sleep away. This is something that's happening, and this is something that really needs to be talked about. And I'm so grateful that this show is getting people to talk about it, because it really is like having people come up after the show, say like, you know, their feelings, their thoughts about everything. Like that's what needs to happen, is opening that conversation up. So I think it's been really powerful in that way.
Yeah,
I just want to share something really, really quickly. I promise to dovetail on what Sarah was saying. Hey, you see what I did there? When the showcase was first performed at Shenandoah University here in Virginia, a couple of young women came up to me afterwards and said that they almost had to leave because they knew people who survived Marjorie Stoneman Douglas. And it was so close to them because they were friends of theirs, and it was so close to they had gone to school in Florida, gone to high school in Florida. And they knew these people who had survived this thing, and they said almost the same thing that you just said now. They decided not to leave because it was two things to them. One, we need to talk about this. We need to be able to gird our loins and go where this leads us. And two, it's in honor of those who haven't made it, to talk about it, to face that this happens and we can't kick the can down the road anymore. And I thought that was really quite stunning, that they not only summoned the courage to stay, but to talk to me afterwards about what it meant to them. Was great.
Yeah, Neek's character has a line where you say, "That's
Who's
why
asking me to try again? Something weird is going on.
Oh, I don't see it. We heard you,
something's trying to record me. Okay, good, excellent. Now I'm done.
Neek, what's the moment where your character says, you're talking about your character's cousin was lost during this event, and you say, "That's why I'm here to try to make
to pay them the honor of trying to understand."
To do them the honor of trying to understand.
Yeah.
It's a good line. It's a good line. What brought you to this play, Neek? What did you what drew you to it initially?
It's laughing because he knows exactly what brought me here, which everybody else is like, "I'm feeling it. It's intense, blah, blah." I went to see Kinky Boots, and Kit came up to, well, I actually saw him across the room, and I haven't seen him since 2010, maybe?
Something like that, yeah.
2009. And I saw him and I was so excited, and I ran over to him and we just started talking. He's like, "You want to do my play?" I was like, F yeah, I want to do your play. And he was like, "How old are you?" And I was like, "I know this is kind of sensitive and I don't care. I don't really care." And so he's like, "You want to play a 23-year-old?" I'm like, "Sure, whatever. Who cares?" And he sent me the script to read. And when I read it, it was just, it hit my heart. It was just such a beautiful and important story to tell. I feel like this is something that can help change the world.
Wow. Jeez.
And
Thanks.
so don't let your head get big.
What?
Don't let your head get big. No.
No.
But
no. God,
seriously.
no.
I know, kid. No, but it was just one of those things like I could be doing a fun little fun show, or I could be doing something with meaning that might change people's hearts. The thing that I like the most about this play is that we get everybody's point of view. So if you try to talk to somebody, people are always interrupting, right? Somebody's interrupting, and then you're like, you might forget what you wanted to say. You had a point you wanted to make. This play forces you to sit through each point of view without interrupting. And I think that's one of the things that I love the most about it.
Cool.
Everyone
I have to say that getting Neek involved with this play, Neek is an artist of the first order to begin with, and secondly, is not shy with comments and knows that she can talk to me about what's going on and what she's read. The character that she portrayed, that those who have seen the play saw, started with my words and now is very much a combination of not only mine but also Jeff's, and also Neek's input onto that character, because I want everybody to reflect for a moment on the times we live in and what is expected of artists and what their boundaries are. I am obviously a somewhat perhaps older than middle-aged white American male. One could very much ask the question, what the hell do I know about writing to the heart and soul of a 23-year-old Black woman? And Neek helped me with that. It was on the way to being, I think, accurate and genuine, but Neek, thank you very much for even just in some word choices that were like just more you, more genuine, more your experience. And that was essential to me because I wanted to be nothing if not genuine with these people. And you helped a great deal with that. So thank you.
One thing that I really loved is that there was something we were going to cut from Zoe's monologue because, I was like, yeah, let's just cut stuff out of Zoe's monologue because I talk for like 10 minutes or 15 minutes. I just blah, 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 blah. I
Yeah,
just
my
keep
original
talking.
monologue was 3 fucking pages, and then they
Right,
significantly
right.
cut it down.
So I was
like,
all
oh
for
no,
the
the
cuts.
monologue, but
I know, I was all for the cutting, right? But when we cut the part about being colorblind, I asked Kit and Jeff, I was like, no, that's too important. That's just too important to me as a human because that's how I feel. I've never had somebody in a show say how I feel, like about being colorblind and it disrespecting who they are, and then you're not seeing these people as person. I don't think people think of it that way. They just think, no, colorblind, it's a good thing. It's not. And Kit said that, and I thought it was really wonderful that you put that back in.
Cool, thank you. Well, and it's well delivered, so there you go.
It sounds like there was a lot of trust in this rehearsal process because not only are you dealing with very difficult issues, but you have a world premiere and things evolve and change. And Jeff, especially as a director, you had to create a room where people felt they had to let some of the darkest vulnerabilities come out of their character. And what Kit's jumping in.
It's essential that Jeff was part of this project. Absolutely essential. It couldn't have happened without. And I told Lisa Millette as much before we decided who was going to do it and whatnot, because it was clear that I couldn't. And the fact is, and this might be news to some folks, this is the first time a world premiere of mine has not been directed by me, which is a whole different experience. And I knew that the other me had to direct it. Jeff had to direct it. If for no other reason, that I knew I couldn't be in the room after the first 3 were read-throughs. I knew I was going to be 2,700 miles away. I knew we were going to be doing a lot of tinkering and a lot of rewriting and a lot of cutting, over email and whatnot. And I knew I had to have somebody that I could trust and not worry about like, oh, what is that tone of voice in that email? Or what is that trying to mean? Or and we could go back and forth and back and forth. That was essential because of being such a new experience for me, if nothing else.
Yeah.
This was new for me.
For the record, you were my choice to direct it. But since you couldn't do it, I'm glad that I was able to do it. I do want to say about being in the room during rehearsals and creating an atmosphere of trust. But I also think that we certainly cast the right people. Because I felt immediate trust from everybody. Well, if not immediate, very soon thereafter, once we got to know each other, I think there was a lot of trust in there. And during the audition process, we wanted great actors, which we got. But I tried to throw in a question every once in a while to people of like, well, what is it about this character, the character they were auditioning for? What is it about this character that appeals to you, or that you're interested in, or what is it about this play or this topic? I kind of wanted to get to know or just gauge people's interest beyond just the acting part of it. And I think that led me down some paths of who we were going to use by the great responses we got. But then once we got going, we just, there is the pressure of the world premiere coming up in a matter of weeks. So we have to work fast, but we have to work well. And I think we were able to do that. It was a great group. And I've said this to them, and I think I said this in one of the in-person talkbacks. But even though the topic was so heavy and difficult and important, we were able to laugh a lot in rehearsals, and I think that made a difference, especially as we got closer to opening. Instead of becoming more tense as we're about to open, I felt like at least I felt more relaxed as we got towards opening, and we were able to laugh and have a good time. So I think that was a good sign.
Well, you all seem to be having some fun in the green room. I mean, I heard opening night, you guys are, it's Sam bringing in these great riddles, and everybody's trying to solve these logic puzzles and riddles. And I thought, oh, this cast really gets along so nicely. I snuck back there and enjoyed hanging out with you whenever I could. I wanted to ask Stephanie, because as I said, Breaking Our Hearts, you have, I think, one of the most difficult monologues in the show. And you're up there crying real tears, and it's hard. How do you prepare to go on stage and to give that kind of performance every night?
It's a great question. Well, I know someone said to me, they're like, how can you cry on cue? But I'm not really crying on cue, right? Like, I think what I do every night is like, I try to be as present as possible, right? And like, Shannon doesn't have a lot to say, so I have a lot of time to listen. And so I'm truly listening to what each character is saying and taking everything in. And so by the time that I get to speak, like, I'm truly kind of like feeling very overwhelmed, and like, she's also trying to understand how this can be solved, right? And so by the time that I'm up and talking, like, I'm truly going through kind of like all the emotions and all the thoughts that everyone by that point has shared already. I think I mentioned this earlier too at a talkback, but I think, when it comes to shootings, like, it's really hard to read the news, to watch the videos. Like, I do sometimes try to put it off my mind, but when I was cast in the show, I was like, I feel like I owe it to the survivors, right, to pay them the honor to do this honestly and truthfully and as best as I can. And so I have watched a lot of interviews. I've read a lot of articles, and just to kind of try to understand what it is like to live after experiencing something so traumatic, right? Like, I think we've all gone through traumatic things, right? Like, I have, but nothing quite so violent and so terrible. And so I kind of wanted to understand what that was like, what it was like living through it afterwards. And then, yeah, I think it's just a matter of being in the moment, listening, and just being as honest as I can.
Sure.
And
that was when I saw the show on opening, Stephanie, that was palpable. That was palpable to me. And just to share something interesting, sort of behind the scenes for folks who don't know how these things happen. In the first iteration of Toxic back in 2019 for the students, Stephanie's monologue was not part of the play. It wasn't in there.
Wow.
Stephanie's monologue happened in very end of 2019, maybe the beginning of 2020. Interestingly, when I was going through it and sort of reading it and seeing what I could do with it eventually, and my father had fallen and broken his hip, and he was in the hospital, and I was sitting in a hospital waiting room, and Stephanie's monologue kind of descended on me, and I started writing, and that's when that happened, and I realized that it was absolutely essential. And as you say, you don't say much until then. She's the quiet one. And it made me, and there's reasons for that I don't need to go into originally, but it occurred to me that was dramatically viable, that this is the quiet one who then lets loose in a description of the event that is utterly unique. It's almost poetic. And that's possible because she's the only one who was wounded of the ones we're getting to know. And I wrote it in a hospital waiting room.
Oof. It's really, thank you.
Yeah.
Well,
So yeah, and I realized it was absolutely essential. It was kind of the thing that was missing. Like, as I was reading through it, it was like, oh my God, that's exactly what's missing, is somebody who actually, not to make light of it at all, of course, just the opposite, somebody who actually was shot and survived. And it occurred to me that Shannon was the one, and that's why she was quiet.
Yeah,
So
and
you
I mean that's something that audience members have shared with me, right? Like they come up to me and they're like, I was waiting for you to speak up and say something, and then it was like waterworks, right? Like all the tears. But I think it's because unlike some of the other people in the show, like Shannon is talking about her experience in the moment, right? Like a lot of the things we're talking about are like more like political issues and stance and like kind of the fear and the frustration that nothing's happening, that nothing's changing. But Shannon is really going into kind of like what she experienced in the moment, right? And what it was like to be in that room and like what she felt and what she's still holding on to all these years later. So it's been really difficult, but really great being to play this character.
Awesome.
Thank you.
And then of course we have Kevin, who doesn't say anything for a while, and we have Kevin and Jesse, who have a really interesting arc. I don't even know what kind of question I want to ask, but I just want to hear from you just a bit about the experience of playing this very powerful arc, and then the way you meet at the end. It gives me goosebumps just thinking about it. Okay, I don't have a real question. What was it like? What's it like?
There was definitely, well, to be completely frank, when I initially auditioned for this, I didn't know that the character I was auditioning for, Kevin, I didn't realize that he was like the shooter until I got the callback, and I just was saying in my brain, "Oh shit, I'm playing like they want me to like read again for the murderer. Okay, let's do this. Okay." And then, when I got the casting, when they were saying, "Hey, we want to offer you the role of Kevin," I was like, "Okay, that's a tall order, but I'll do it." I mean, I was just, I was clearly, I was honored to be offered the role, but I was so terrified as well to like portray that, because it's like, when you hear about these stories, when I hear about these stories, it's like I don't want to have the idea of like the shooter being like this like humanizing like the shooter. I never want to have that. But this sort of challenged me to kind of approach this as I would any role. And it was hold on, I'm starting to blank out, so Lexi, do you want to
No, it was, I mean, yeah, same with you auditioning for this. I almost chose actually Rachel's monologue to audition because I was like, Jesse's, yeah, which is funny because Sarah and I have played the same character in the past. And I, like you, Sarah, I'm good at being the know-it-all character. And I was like, okay, that's what I know. I know I can play that. And so, but if for some reason I kept gravitating towards Jesse's monologue, as heavy as it was. And even after the audition, I've told this to, a handful of people. I was like exhausted and just wanted to like go eat, get a sweet snack and treat myself to something, because it took a lot out of me, which I didn't really realize. Like that whole week I was rehearsing that monologue. And finally when I did it, I was like, okay, I can breathe now. And obviously doing it on stage every night, I've gotten used to that feeling now. There are some nights where, in particular, sometimes Greg's monologue actually like kind of makes me cry as Jesse, because I've already been hearing so many different things from everyone, and all I can think the whole time is like, my brother did that. Like when, Shannon has her monologue, I'm like, my brother did that to her. And my brother killed this father as well, not just students, but he killed this father that has a wife and 3 kids. And so like that, whenever you say that, like that always just for some reason gets to me. And when you say like the final pop, I always imagine like Kevin, Aaron, because I know that final pop was my brother dying and me seeing that. So yeah, just kind of like what Stephanie said. I mean, my moment comes at the end, and but that whole time I'm just like taking in what everyone's saying, and yeah, it's a lot because obviously I was there in the end, and with Jake's monologue too, like I'm imagining Mr. D in the room, and so yeah, it's heavy, but as mentioned, we have a lot of fun too. So having the
And
cast too.
The Jesse Kevin thing, from a playwriting perspective, was a real risk to me. It was like, can I make this work? Because I mean, let's be frank, we have a dead person suddenly coming to life and interacting with people on the stage and also with the audience. And that's highly theatrical. The only place that can happen is the theater or film. It was a risk. And I think that the key to making that work, and what I saw happen when I saw the play on opening night, is that the monologue as delivered by Alexander was so honest that it teed up Kevin as a person. And that enabled us to believe that Kevin was real. And that is a credit to you, young lady, playing Jesse. That was incredibly well done. Objectively and avoiding, but also going, and all the complexity that's in the monologue. But that was a real risk playwriting wise. Can I put a dead person on the stage and will we listen? And I don't know. What do you think, Aaron? Are people listening?
From the response that I've gotten from a lot of people, like after the show, and us waiting for audience members to come out, like they seem to have, they felt the raw vulnerability of Kevin. I think they have felt it.
Nice.
And I think that's a credit to, it's a credit to the art that's the multiple people that have been going into this character with like your work on the script, and I guess the work put in by the from me as an actor, but also I think I feel like the sound design in that scene particularly is able to really build up to Kevin in a really beautiful way. But I think that also it's not as difficult as you may think when you have such a talented scene partner like Lexi to work off of,
Cool. Great.
Yeah.
Well said. There's a moment towards the beginning when Lexi says he has a name.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a tiny little moment. It's just like you start to sense what's going on with her. So interesting. Yes,
I can share just really quickly. I want to share something because you hit on something that was important to me. One of the reasons that the whole Kevin Jesse thing is in there is that I was fascinated by the fact that when the police and investigators were dealing with Marjorie Stoneman Douglas in Florida, they arrested the shooter's sister. And I thought that was fascinating. Now, ultimately, she had nothing to do with it, didn't know about it, et cetera, et cetera. But that connection to me was so palpable that this is my blood becoming. I mean, I'll be honest with you, I've always been fascinated by what is it that makes us break? What is it that makes us become aberrant? What is it that makes us, what made Jack the Ripper? What made Lizzie Borden? What made Kevin? And while the play certainly goes nowhere to answer that question, I'm fascinated by the people so closely around that. So the sister-brother relationship there to me, suggested by Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, was so fascinating. And what it allowed me, what made me realize is that the play had to arc from objectivity to personal involvement. And if you'll notice, if you read it, all of the monologues and everybody's commenting on what happened and their experience goes from being more objective, like Zoe, who's the first monologue, to Jesse and then Kevin, who acted out for us, in a very Equus sort of way. I just thought that the whole brother-sister thing was fascinating. I mean, the blood is amazing. And what does that do to us? So anyway, thought I'd offer that.
Yeah. So we have someone in the audience, an audience member, Sasha, has some feedback about being a mother when seeing the play.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Bay Area director, dramaturg, performer, Sasha Mataligo. And Kit, I've had the pleasure of seeing you as your plays for many years. I grew up in Palo Alto. So
Yeah.
thank you so much.
And thank
and
you.
I'm very happy to see. I think this is the first time I've seen with you as a playwright. Sorry, I need a cigarette for this conversation.
That's okay, so do I.
I registered my daughter for kindergarten the same month that Sandy Hook happened. And I was terrified. But what was I going to do? My kid had to go to school. So I feel like ever since then, I mean, I've heard, you know, they have shooter drills, and I've just kind of blocked it out because the specter of dealing with this head on it would drive me mad and wouldn't be helpful to anyone.
Yeah.
At the same time, I recognize that grief, that anger is something, terror is something that I had to confront. So when this show came up, I thought theater for me, first and foremost, is a place to commune. It's about to share the human experience. It's about audience members connecting with each other. And it gave me the ability to look at this sober-faced and hear a story. And I can never tell you how grateful I am to have been in the safety of a theater, to have finally have tears. I didn't have tears before, and that has been cathartic for me. And I just want to say how greatly I appreciate, we need more plays like this. And you know what? I totally agree. We're coming out of COVID. We got to do some schmacting musical theater shows. We've got to this select, like, I think the dramas that came out, I'm all about the classics. However, the drama we need needs to be relevant, needs to be permanent to our community, our country, of what is happening now. So I thank you very much. I have a couple of comments. First of all, the character Evan. I like that. I love me some tour de force endings, and that he wound up being the kid, which I didn't suspect. I'm like, oh, okay, he's this kid on the guitar, and that's how he expresses himself with music. Like, he can't talk about how terrifying this experience was. He can play. And then when I found out he was the killer, I'm just curious if the intent was, like, what was his intention in playing the guitar? And I think that audience members can take away from that what they will. I will tell you what I thought. Because it was a distraction. It was like people were getting on, they're like, hey, it's all good. You know, it's fine.
Cool. Good.
But I just found that just really affecting. And I liked all of the different stages of grief that a couple of the characters were still very much contending with it. I liked that one, and that's happened to my family, that heals through music and movement, the roller skating character. And
Mel.
I just really respect it. And I became a seasoned subscriber. I've always patronized City Lights, but it inspired me, and I'm lucky. All of the various things at City Lights are very exciting. And I look forward to, you know, seeing the shows, maybe more depending on what happens, but that's my story.
That's lovely and chilling. Thank you, Sasha.
I will say something very special about the guitar that I use on stage is that was the guitar of my mother's mother, who is no longer with us, but she would always sing and play guitar, and there's something, I feel honored that I get to carry a bit of her each night on that stage. I know that it was emotional for my mom when she saw the show, that component. So, yeah.
Sure. Oh, great.
There's an audience question relating to the guitar, Dan wanted to know, were all the guitar cues in the script, were the songs and riffs improvised by Aaron during rehearsals, or were they written by the sound designer or someone else?
Go, guys.
The script basically says that the character accompanies the show as it goes along and usually doesn't specify where exactly. And so we had to experiment in rehearsal how much to do. And I think originally we had a lot more, and we had to pull back a little bit just because of, not being distracting from what the other characters were saying or the story we were telling. But we did, obviously we thought it was an important element, so we definitely wanted to keep it. And yes, Aaron improvised all of that. That was not the sound designer. So that's a good question. I think there might have been one thing that you borrowed, Aaron, but I don't remember, from somewhere else, one place. But anyway, but otherwise it was really all Aaron. And really, honestly, just reacting to the moments in the show as he would sit there in rehearsal and really just riff off of what he was hearing and what he was seeing. And so it was really an amazing job by him.
We, in fact, did something kind of cruel to Aaron in the callback, as I recall, that I came to watch because I happened to be in town, and we looked at him and said, "Hey, Aaron, play, go." And he did, and it made us realize, both of us, and certainly more Jeff than me, that it's like, okay, there's somebody who can handle this requirement.
Impressive.
Yeah, he did a good job.
And we've got a question from Lauren
I know.
as well. Lauren
Oh,
has
great.
her hand up.
Hi, can you hear me?
Hear you just fine.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. I'm gonna leave my camera off because I'm not camera ready. Sorry about that.
Okay.
I want to say hi to Kit and hi to a couple of people said hello to me earlier, but I was having technical issues, so I couldn't get my mic.
Okay.
So I apologize for that. I just wanted to say thank you to all of the creative folks who had the courage and the creativity to take on this subject. So thank you very much for tackling and interpreting this very heavy subject. I really appreciate it. It was beautifully done. I was wondering if either the director, the writer, or anybody else on the City Lights team or on the Toxic team had anything they would like to say to students, high school students, just going through their high school experience. I know that's kind of general, but I have 2 teenagers in my household. And I have 2 little kids too, but I have 2 teenagers, and I just wondered if you had any advice, anything you'd like to say to young people.
About the play, or about the situation that the play is talking about?
The situation.
Oh my.
Anything, yeah. Anything.
Yeah. Well, there's a question that could lead to 3 hours of conversation.
Yeah, really.
I'll speak for myself very quickly. If we do not live our lives, the villain, the evil, wins. We have to live our lives. It's the message, for example, of Mel, the skater in the play. You can be frightened of this and hunker down in your room, or you can go out and live your life. And the greatest, I'm going to get all emotional, but the greatest weapon against anyone who would try to make us not be, whether that's a shooter or a national enemy or a bomb or a war or a terrorist. To me, the greatest way to answer that is live your life. Fear is loss. Fear is capitulation. Live your life. And that's all I'll say right now, because it's a little too much for me right now.
I got to piggyback on that, because what Kit's words, one of the final things that I say in my monologue is, you can choose to sit around and let the world turn without you, or you can choose to get up and give it a spin, baby. And I was like, that's actually stuck with me, for me as a human being. And I was like, because I suffer with depression and PTSD and anxiety and things like that. I mean, you don't know that because I'm like Miss Happy Bubbly person, but I have some serious trauma issues, and there are a lot of times where I sit around and let the world turn without me. But now, it's just those words. You can choose to get up and give it a spin. And she's just like, and that's what I'm all about, like I'm too busy living to be a victim of anything. I mean, like those words, that whole little thing there was just like.
Which is why Zoe's monologue is first. It sets that all up. It sets up at the very beginning of the play what, to me, and thank you to Lisa Millette, who allowed this to happen, or who suggested this to happen, it allows the protagonist to reveal himself and shine and begin the journey to healing at the end of the play. And if you don't know that, what happened is that the play did not involve Jake's rediscovery or re-entry into the world until Lisa was talking to me on the phone about the play, and she said, dude, it needs more hope. And I realized she was right, because I've known Lisa for a very long time. Some of you know that we've known each other closer than we know each other now. And I know she's right often. And I realized in reading back, how do I put hope at the end of the play, that hope comes in the form of Jake, who is the most rancid character throughout, that he had to be the one who without even knowing it, starts his journey to healing and becomes the very person who has made him who he is. Anyway, enough of that.
Let's just give a quick wave goodbye to Jeff, who has to go to different
rehearsal. Have a great rehearsal, buddy.
Thanks. Take care, everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jeff. Lisa has her hand up. Let's hear what you have to say, Lisa.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to also address that question from Lauren. Our country and our world is facing so many issues. It's like unprecedented how many negative issues there are and how challenging it is. But what I would say, and I have teenagers too, well, one now, I guess. One's gotten a bit older, but is that you matter and your opinions matter, and you will be in charge soon. And you will be helping us make all of these decisions and these changes. It will be you, your voices, your thoughts. And one of the reasons why there's so many issues in this play that you could take apart, like the Dr. Plant was saying that at the talkback on Sunday, that there's a tsunami of mental health issues that are very real in our country, and they have skyrocketed. You could write a whole play about that in connection to gun violence. But what we're really focusing on here is that there are 400 million weapons and there are 350 million people. Yeah. And it's the reform around the rules that if that doesn't change, then almost it doesn't matter if anything else does.
Exactly.
It's the control over these weapons and who has them and how easy they are to attain. I am not saying that people shouldn't have them.
Nope.
Necessarily. I would never have one. I would never have one in my home. But we have to get politicians to look past their own interests and the money and start to put stronger rules and regulations around what weapons are being made and who is able to buy them. And how many do you need is another thing. We have too many weapons in this country, and there is no need for it.
Lisa, can I dovetail on something? Go ahead. Sorry.
So one of the things that I learned recently at this awesome conference in Stanford is that nonprofits in general, arts plus and have the ability to bring people and move them to action more than any other industry in the world. And what I mean by that is that nonprofits they are public benefit corporations that serve the community that they are in, and they can rally people around specifically to vote and to be able to collect together and say, no, enough. And I live with hope, but my hope lies with you, teenagers.
Yeah. Yes.
That's where I feel the most hope, is with the teenagers. Yeah. It's with the teenagers who and early 20-somethings that are like, wait, I'm not just going to sit around for the rest of my life and take this.
Yeah.
I'm going to change it.
I think that recent daily events in Congress have proved that we can't rely on them.
Yeah, I don't even want to go down that hole, though,
right?
That path. Like, I don't want to talk about why I feel let down by my everything right now, because I think it's more hopeful to realize that we are raising another generation that can make a huge difference.
Yes.
So speak up, speak out, know in your heart that people care about how you think and what you feel.
Yes.
And know that you are the ones that are going to be empowered to make a real difference for your own families.
And do not be frightened by the machinery of lobbyists. Don't. I want to share a statistic with all of you. It wasn't 2016, 15, 14, 13, 12, 2012. The NRA, I want to ask this question openly. How many national elections or national and regional elections did the NRA, the National Rifle Association, how many elections did the NRA influence through their lobbying work? Anyone want to offer a guess? It's quite astonishing. Aaron, what do you think?
I don't know.
Percentage-wise.
Oh, yeah, percentage? Percentage. I'll go 85%.
Sure. Right. Yeah. The NRA is frightening, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what the answer is? The NRA swayed elections 0%. This notion that guns are this machine and this influence that we cannot address is simply false. We are making a false assumption. We need to reset our thinking. As Lisa was saying, we rely on the teenagers. Absolutely. It's my kids, Sophie and Olivia, who are going to be saving the world. And they have to start by realizing that the NRA had this much effect. When I read that several years ago, my whole day was just like, whoop. My whole notion of what was real kind of fell apart. Because like everybody was like, oh, the NRA, they're too powerful, they're too big, as they say in the play. No, people are more powerful. Go vote. Anyway, next. Yeah, because I'm not impassioned about this at all. Somebody asked me, I think on one of the interviews in the press, asked me, so why'd you write this play? So I'm going to tell you frankly, because I'm fucking pissed.
And they quoted you, though I don't think they.
And they didn't say that, but they said they quoted me pretty close. But that's the truth, and I would hope everybody is.
Yeah,
I'm tired of it.
Thank you, Kit.
Yeah.
Well, we have been on for about an hour. I think we'll be wrapping up pretty soon, but I want to make sure that Arturo and Sam and Christina get to say something. I think.
Yeah.
Everyone has probably gotten to say something except from the cast. If I'm leaving someone out, please let me know. But if any of you want to jump in and say something about how this show affected you, what it's meant to you, anything you'd like to add?
I have a question of Arturo.
Actually, Christina just raised her hand. Let's let her
go.
Oh,
great. Christina.
Oh, thanks. I was just going to say, I have kind of the more obvious connection to the show. My character is the only one who is not directly impacted by the events of the shooting. I know Arturo's character wasn't technically there, but all of these characters on stage have been truly impacted by the loss of their friends, their school, their safe place. And Annika comes in as an outsider. She's empathetic, but she doesn't have any direct firsthand knowledge. I am a full-time public school teacher. I deal with it every day. And so coming in as the one character who doesn't have any experience, it was very strange because this is something I deal with all the time. And I was laughing, sharing texts with the cast saying, you know, Ron got the floor right, the ugly classroom floor. It's exactly like the one in my classroom. But it's really interesting to try to stay. Annika is very affected by the events in the show. I think she's very interested. She truly wants to learn, even though sometimes she puts her foot in her mouth or she gets, you know, Jake upset. But she truly wants to learn and she doesn't understand. And I think the good part about Annika is that she's willing to try. She's willing to take it when Zoe says, you're wrong. She listens. But as somebody who has all of this experience, you know, Tech Week, the Tuesday of Tech Week, we did a lockdown drill with my students.
Oh, man.
And to come back to, you know, we do this every night. We're looking at the video that we watch every single night. One of the tombstones is the name of one of my students this year. So kind of trying to separate myself from Annika, it's been a very interesting thing. I'm used to working with Sasha and doing musical theater, where it's fun and silly, and there's some beautiful musical theater, but it's not necessarily about gun violence. And I don't necessarily connect my personal life to the characters I play on stage all the time in musicals. And in this, trying truly hard to separate it because I can empathize with so many of these characters. I have not been through a school shooting, thank God. But, you know, it's one of the talkback gentlemen, our first week asked, how do you let go? And we were saying, you know, we hang out, we do board games as a cast, we absolutely do. But I don't really let it go. I think about it every single day when I go to work. And then I come to the theater and still think about it. So it's been very interesting for me creating a character who is so different from me. It's been a little bit more challenging than normal in the show process, trying to take myself out of the character and thinking Annika wouldn't react that way. Annika doesn't understand quite yet, or she doesn't have that, you know, she's empathetic, but she's not able to put herself in their shoes 100%. Yeah. And trying to remove myself from the character has been very interesting. Mm-hmm. Just want to say thanks to Kit for casting me in a very big, challenging part.
It's interesting that there've been some criticisms that Annika is tone deaf. And the truth is that's intentional. Because unless you know this issue intimately, what I've discovered in my research is that there are those who know this issue intimately and those who simply have no idea. It's a little bit what Shannon's talking about. Maybe you don't know what to do about this until you've been in it. And she is tone deaf because the only thing she's got is an academic approach to something that is hardly academic, right? And I think you do a marvelous job of a very tricky balancing act between being dumb and being wanting to know, you know, and that's almost everybody in this country. You know, if we haven't been through it, all we can do is guess. So what do? We rely on stats. We rely on what we've heard. We rely on reports and news. But that's not the real thing. That's not what's really happened. You know, so congrats for doing a great job with that. Yeah.
Okay, you said you had a question for Arturo?
I do. What does the end of the play, which is very Jake-centric, mean to you? No pressure. Go.
Great. That is an amazing question, Kit. Thank you for asking me such a difficult question, but such an important question. You know, I remember coming into this and reading Jake and reading the script and realizing that Jake is, arguably to some people, the worst character for the first 40, 50 minutes in the play. And like nobody likes him. And to see that transformation, to see that ending where he finally lets go and he finally lets people in is a prime example of what type of change has to happen to our society, right? It's not something we are going to change of other people, but one must look at themselves and be able to understand what barricades they've built, what deflectors they have, what shields they've, put up, and how we can look past this idea of being hurt, of looking weak, of being vulnerable, and accept that it's okay to cry, it's okay to let go, it's okay to let other people in, and just get to share how you truly feel on the inside. I know that we are all striving for the same thing at the end of the day, and that's hope. So, it's really important, and it shows a great transformation, I think, and what needs to happen in people before we can even get the ball rolling as a bigger grand scheme of things. We as people have to let hope be our lights and let that come into our lives, and let ourselves find hope before we can try to impose it on other people, before we try to force other people to feel the same hope. Because if we don't have any hope in ourselves, we're never going to accept that anybody else's hope is going to work for us. So that's how I feel. I hope that's an adequate answer for kids.
Oh my God, that's an incredible answer. For those who aren't part of the play, who are still with us, Mr. D'Angelo, the teacher that Jake speaks about in the play, who was killed in his classroom, is a real person. Mr. D, that's not his name. Mr. D'Angelo is not his name, but Mr. D is one of my high school teachers. He was not killed in a school shooting. He died in a hospital after having a heart attack on a golf course. But Mr. D was that light for me. That the real person who was the model for Mr. D, just as Mr. D is the light for Jake. There was when I started writing Jake and I started really digging, I just had realized I had to go someplace intensely personal. And a few years before, maybe a year before, Lisa Millette, called me at home to tell me that the teacher whom Mr. D is modeled after had passed. And I took the news and hung up the phone and was a wreck for quite a long time. Because as Jake says, he's as much a part of who I am as my own parents. So that's sometimes what you do when you're writing something. They say write what you know. Well, there you go. And so Jake is Jake, but Jake is also me, pissed and angry. And how do you turn that into something dramatically viable? So I hope that works for you, Arturo.
Sorry, Arturo, go ahead.
I was just going to say, yeah, it works. It's a lot. I've had some comments from some friends who ask me if I'm ever, if I'm actually acting on that stage sometimes. So, that's where we're at, but that's okay. It is very, it's a very true character. It's a very real character. And knowing Kit and having had a few interactions with Kit, Kit is Jake sometimes. And I think I am too. I think we are all Jake sometimes, right? We all have
Yes. There you go. We are all Jake.
We are, but sometimes some people know how to control that. Some people don't know how to control that. And at the end of the day, that's a big lesson we learned. Like, what is our inner Jake? And are we going to let him just break out the cage and take over our world? Or are we going to walk forward and tell him everything's going to be okay?
Lisa, did you want to add something?
I just wanted to say that one of the things that I've heard from audience members kind of a lot, and I think this is worth noting, is that a lot of people relate to that monologue about a teacher.
Yeah.
And I think that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Our teachers are doing a good job.
Yeah.
And we all kind of know what that's like to feel, you know, special to a teacher and feel like they really care about you, which goes back to me just saying we need to empower the young people around us and make sure they feel listened to. And but I think it's wonderful how many people have said, I had a teacher like that, or, you know, from the audience. I just think that's another thing to be hopeful about.
Yeah.
Definitely. Definitely. Well, I think we are probably going to wrap this up unless there's anyone else who wants to add anything or any audience member who had a question that didn't get answered.
If people need to go, I'm going to hang here for the duration. So, you know.
Well, I gotta go. I gotta go feed my
You
kids.
can go. I'm going to hang here and talk to folks. Let's go.
What about Sam? Yes. Thank you, Aaron. Sam, say something if you would like to, and if you would not, that is okay too.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. I think what I can say is I say this when folks come out after the play and they're talking about like how you do this day after day. And I think this play is it gives me, and I think a lot of the cast members, so much purpose to do. And the message that we are able to deliver and the stories that we are able to tell. It's not a common that an actor is able to tell stories like this. And I think that it's definitely been such a blessing and such a great experience to work with such talented individuals here at City Lights, and great cast, great directing, writing, to be able to deliver such a full message and really impact the people that we've been able to share the story with.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think that's as good a note to end on as any.
Hi, Dan.
Lauren. Thank you all for being here tonight, for sharing more about this. I know we've had several special talkback events with this show because we wanted to give audience members a space really to discuss and learn and share. And it was great to have you all here tonight. So
Yeah.
thank you, and that you all will be back on stage tomorrow. We've got 2 more weekends. The show runs through October 15th. So let your friends know if they haven't seen it already. And this Sunday is an especially good performance to bring a teen to, because we have our nonprofit partner, Youth Connect. They will be running an onstage talkback after the show with teens from the program, talking about what the show has meant to them and their thoughts on the topic. So that's our Sunday matinee at 2. Thank you all very much. Have a wonderful
Thank you,
night.
Becky.
Thank you. We'll see you all soon. Good night.